better. Like when my last teacher, um, he was big on nudity, and he built that into he did a lot of Eastern style initiations and stuff. They have this whole world of attunements and empowerments and stuff, and a lot of them are really real stuff from the Far East, which I love. And some of them are new agey kind of fluff, but I have a lot of the really good real ones, so I'm glad. I have the fluffy ones too, but you can make them all work. It's about how much faith you have and how you're able to use the energy. But you could actually build upon the energy of one of those. Anyway, I don't want to I don't want to get into that. I'll start going off on that. But yeah, no, it's like as a kid, the girls back in the day it was girls mostly getting these messages. Your body's not good enough. You're never good enough. It's not enough. Now guys get that too. They get it a lot now. They get a lot more. They have to be hot. They get these things about to be a certain kind of guy. They always sell you an image. Like I said, back in the day it was and apparently those skinny bodies with the big boobs, those are actually cocaine bodies. So that's actually what that's about. Those are cocaine sluts apparently, and I had no idea. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, I mean, now the body is like super thick hips, super curvy, no hip dips, and it's all like, it's always going to change, but all you can do is to try to have the best body that you can have, you know what I mean? It's always going to change. Like, it's hard. It's been traditionally very hard actually for tall, thin girls. I'm actually glad they had such a long time as supermodels because they needed that, because it was hard. For a lot of years, it was really hard. They would actually inject women with estrogen to force them to be shorter than they had to be back in the 60s. It's true. It's true. Like, if a woman looked like she was going to be really tall, like 6 feet tall, they would inject her with a hot dose of estrogen to stop her at 5'7" or 5'8" or something, or, so that she wouldn't get too tall. Even shorter than that. I'm probably being kind. They probably wanted a much shorter, because it was a thing back then. Like, if you were too tall, like the Rockettes weren't even tall then. It was like, it was a whole different time. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mine got huge when my son was born, and it's hard. I was like, all right. Yeah, that's what they were like, and that's like, but those aren't even real. Like the old cocaine bodies, they aren't real. That's with the fake boobs. I mean, that's why we have to get comfortable, because there's nothing good about any kind of implant. And we all wish there. I mean, I wish there was, because I don't really have a problem with people doing what they want to do. If it makes you happy. But they're bad. They go bad in 10 years, and they're bad, and they hurt your body, and that's all. It sucks. It sucks because I have huge, and they're a pain in the ass too. Like, I'd like to get them reduced, but I didn't like what I saw. My friend an old friend of mine had hers reduced, and I didn't like the way it turned out. Honestly, it was like not what I would want actually. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna wait for as long as I possibly can, and But men have it hard. I mean, women have had it hard like that, but now men are getting the same kind of messages that they have to be super ripped and super cool and super hot. There's not that many guys who are even like anything but the muscly type. There's a few, like Cumberbatch, and you see him and women love Cumberbatch, but they don't push that type of guy because that's an intellectual type of guy, and they don't want you to be that guy. They don't want you to think. They want you to just fucking feel so they can manipulate you. That's a whole other show, but like, that's most of my show is saying that. That's so good. That's good. It's true. I mean, as far as sacred sexuality goes, it's about, a lot of that is an internal thing. You can do a lot of stuff internally because you do have, everyone's got male or female parts inside of them, and a lot of the problem with society now, in my opinion, is that people were repressing their masculine traits or feminine traits, and they have them in different degrees. And because society had this ideal that you had to be this if to be a woman. This is something I've always felt. As an autistic woman, there are a few small differences. my brain works the same way all women's brain works, except for I tend to lean a little more left, and it comes off as if I'm a little more in the middle mentally. And, actually gay men have a similar thing happening. A lot of really, truly gay men have that same issue, but, and we get along greatly because of it, actually. But it's, what was I going to say? But there are some differences, but they're small differences anyway, to be honest with you. And, everybody's got their good points and everybody's got their bad points as far as how they think. But really mentally no one's inferior to each other. That's silly, Actually, women have a lot of advantages mentally over men that we have been taught to not take advantage of, for one thing, or to lie. I mean, how many of us grew up with our mothers or our aunts telling us to let a man take credit because his ego needed that? I've heard that a few times, and I feel like that's ridiculous, obviously, But, like, people have been forcing themselves to fit into these roles, and like I said, as an autistic woman, I don't fit necessarily perfectly. And a lot of women feel like that. And honestly, in the studies, 2/3 of women, of young girls under 5, will do stereotypical girly things, and 1/3 will do both and all kinds of things. And that's way too big a number for it to be an anomaly. That's just that there's different types of people in the world, And forcing people to fit into very narrow stereotypical boxes, first of all, it puts a psychological stress on you to constantly, like, check yourself all the time. That you're, like, good enough. Am I female enough today? Am I female enough today? Am I enough of a guy right now? Maybe I'm not enough of a guy. Maybe I'm not enough. That's all it is. It's just about making you feel like you're not enough. And I truly think a lot of the anima and the animus just come from the need to repress that part of your personality to the point where it becomes another identity in your subconscious, honestly. Because then at the end, it happens to all of us. It happens to all of us, I mean, even there are stories in the ancient, like old stories about how people were once one-gendered and split in half. And it may be true that there are people whose souls were once one-gendered and were split in half. And that can happen that way, where it's the male half and the female half go away from each other. And it can also happen that you split evenly and you're both semi-androgynous pieces of each other. You can take off small pieces of yourself, big. It's like it's actually, that's an energy thing. But on an energy level, things are much more flexible. Because obviously, I don't believe for one second that people were, like, actually physically one-gendered. People have talked about it very seriously, but a lot of these stories are symbolic. And they're symbolic of real things, though. They're not just psychological ideas. These things are real on actual levels of reality. Like, you are energy. Your spark lives inside of your pineal gland. The personality comes from your heart, and there's a lot of, like, what you would consider you lives in your heart. But the consciousness is here. This is what's looking out of my eyes anyway. So if someone's different, then I'm sorry. This is all I am. And, those things are different. Those things can be genderless, and but they can lean toward gender too, and the body is just a vessel for all of that stuff anyway, And if you look at someone's chart, for instance, you can see, thank you, I love you. I could never get the endless chart. Yeah. Yeah, intuition. I'm trying to read all your stuff. It's good. Yeah, no, honestly, now that I'm older, actually, I used to have just constant, endless chatter in my mind, just like I'm talking now. Just constant, and that's the monkey mind. That's what they call the monkey mind. I honestly wonder if RH negative people don't have that. I think they do, because I think that they just have that one gene anyway, but... yeah, now that I'm older, I don't have that as much at all. Actually, I meditated a lot. I honestly, mostly I'm not as angry at myself, apparently. I don't know. I don't constantly hear the judgment inside my own head anymore and feel it all the time. So that's the good thing about getting older, is that you don't have to feel like that all the time. But it's good, because that chatter does help make it hard to meditate. It makes it really hard to meditate. And if you want to get somewhere, you got to meditate, you know. And like I said, though, if you can, even if whatever situation your soul is in, if you're whatever kind of gender your soul has, you can find a complement in this world for yourself, a soulmate at least. Because first of all, there are 7.5 billion people on this planet, right? So, I mean, and the thing is, we're all patterns. Everybody's met somebody who looked like somebody they knew before. If you get old enough, you'll meet several people who look just like the same person almost, you know? Yeah. I mean, it's just, we all feel so pressured to have an identity that will often fall into the stereotypical identities that they give to us. Like, and then there are things that are built in, like women being competitive with each other is pretty built in. It's a primate thing. And that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with your soul, but your soul's interfaced with the body, so it affects it. But it's something you can overcome, especially if you try to blend like more. Like I said, if you look at your chart, this is a good one. This will help. If you look at your chart, you can see how much male or female energy you have just by where your planets are placed. Like I said, I know a guy who's a gay guy who's a writer who has so much female energy in his chart. All his planets are placed in like feminine signs, and it's like all this stuff with his mother and stuff. And it's like he's just so feminine in every way. But he's like he's okay with being a dude though. Like I said, he's just owned being a goddess since he was like a teenager. So he's like, I am a goddess in a male body, and he's like fine with it. But he has a lot of female energy, a lot. So that's why he feels like that, even though he's a guy. And that's the same. Like, it depends on how much you have. If you have a balance, you just need to give yourself permission to be the person that other people might not always want you to be. And as a woman, they're going to, like, if you're blunt, if you're too hard, you know what I mean? If you don't fit in, if you're have too many guy traits, you're going to get, I've gotten it pretty hard from people for not being like feminine enough, and I've gotten it hard, for being too feminine too, because I am very feminine. I'm emotional as crap, but I have this other side too, and you have to be able to allow yourself. I don't think of them as male or female traits, is what it is. Like, just because you're a warrior, that doesn't mean you have to be a guy to be a warrior. You can be a woman and be a warrior, It's not the only thing. You just because like you're a great occult writer doesn't mean you have to be a man, although you would think so. And if you look at situations like that, where women, 11 to 7, yeah, energy sensitive, Venus Libra, not one bit. There you go. I mean, it's how. Yeah, exactly. You know what though? Here, I'll tell you something interesting. I have a particular alignment in my chart that in the Vedic chart says I should be gay. But I'm not. Actually, horribly in reverse, I married a gay man. And I'm like, I'm not gay. It's the opposite. It's the opposite. I'm just a really, really huge fag hag. Actually, I feel like I'm a gay man in a woman's body, but only sometimes. Then I feel like a woman and I'm fine, But that's what I'm saying. Like, those are all just you. You don't have to put a label, male or female, and make yourself like, I have to be like a demi-guy to be myself. You can just be yourself. You don't have to be part guy. You don't have to be part girl. If you're really trans, that's one thing. If you have so much female energy and then you're not, my friend he's a special case. Like, he's a guy who he's very confident in his inner world. He's got a very active inner world, and he is very serious about it. So, which is why he's a writer. So that makes sense. And, he doesn't have that problem, but some people do. Some people are like, I can't live with it. I just feel like everyone treats me like I should be tough, and I'm not, I get it, and it's fine. It's just like, I think on a bigger level, psychologically, the world is trying to work out its own inner issues, with, like I said, by